And now joining us, we have Betty and Jeremiah, and we are just going to continue the Shakespeare talk, talking with them a little bit about two events coming up. We have one on Saturday that Betty's going to talk with us about, and then one this afternoon.
That's right.
Jeremiah is going to share with us about. So Betty, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about this event coming up on Saturday to celebrate Shakespeare.
Well, this is nice that we can partner with an organization here in town, the Daniel Boone Native Gardens, and that's where this event will take place. Every year at this time, the Daniel Boone Gardens has their annual spring sale, their plant sale, and so when we started talking about this with the Southern Appalachian Historical Association and the High Country Audubon, the Daniel Boone Gardens said, well, why don't you just do it the same day as we have this? Everybody knows about this sale,
right? And
so it just went, yeah, well, why not? So, and all of a sudden, you know, you begin to get all this great stuff happening at the same time. And Curtis Smalling, I think you've had him on before. He is the great Audubon man of the world. He's just fantastic. Everybody knows Curtis. And so he reminded us that Edward Schliffen, so I'm gonna say Eugene. See, I can't even remember. I know, and I even have a cheat sheet. Eugene Schliffen. Anyway, he was a pharmacist, but I prefer to call him a drug dealer. But anyway, he was a pharmacist in New York who was a member of this organization that was trying to introduce birds and animals from different climes into other biozones, like, for instance, the rabbit into Australia, which was another disaster. But anyway, he decided he wanted to introduce the birds that the Bard had spoken of. There are over 600 references to birds in Shakespeare's work. So he decided it would be really great if we could introduce to Central Park in New York all the birds of Shakespeare.
Okay.
He didn't have a lot of success. But he had a fantastical success with the starling, which is now seen as an invasive species here, in all the way to billions and billions of them, all the way to California. So, so one of the things that Curtis has been really interested in, and so is Audubon, is with the extinction, sustainability, and now this idea of reintroducing species, you know, from ancient DNA. So one of the ones that they're even thinking about, you know, is the passenger pigeon, and we can talk about that another time. But so one of the things that we're looking at with the Birds of the Bard is this remarkable success that Schliffen had, and also the Birds of the Bard. So at the Daniel Boone Gardens on Saturday, we are going to be partnering with the Daniel Boone Gardens, and there will be people there leading bird walks. Dr. Lynn Sieferman from the University's Ornithological Department is going to have some of her students there, and they'll be leading bird tours. We're going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. The birds will be up.
Bright and early.
Right. And so we'll have bird walks, and we'll have people there who are also botanists. And the star of the show will be John James Bond. We all know Dr. Bond, right? And he will be there as John James Audubon.
Okay.
Yes.
See what you did there?
Yes. So it'll be a nice crowd of people who are interested in plants and birds and honoring all of the work that Shakespeare did for us.
What a neat event.
I can't promise you cake. Okay. There will be food, but this cake today is cake, and you have cake at your event.
We do have cake at my event.
Yes.
We are celebrating the Bard's birthday today at the Appalachian State Library. I'm a student. I'm a graduating senior, and I've always been captivated by Shakespeare, and I've always been very interested in trying to find out who this man was, because we know so little about him. It's maddening, because he was the greatest writer that ever lived, and yet we know so little about him. Betty and I are both historians, so, well, I'm an amateur, but
I am
but I'm very interested in telling stories about history that is lesser known.
Right.
And as I read more and more about Shakespeare, I found out that there is one thing we can say for certain about him, and that's that he lived in the shop of a wig maker in London in 1604. And the wig maker wanted Shakespeare, the great pander of love, to convince his apprentice to marry his daughter. And Shakespeare apparently did this. He convinced the apprentice to marry the wigmaker's daughter, and the wigmaker apparently promised a dowry that never got paid. So 8 years later, Shakespeare was called into court, and we have his testimony. We know exactly what he said that day in 1612, May 11th, 1612. And it's very interesting to read his testimony because it gives us a glimpse at who he was. There's a book called The Shakespeare Wars that was written by a man named Ron Rosenbaum, and in it he sort of analyzes Shakespeare's testimony, and he was able to see a copy that showed what was crossed out of his testimony. And so he was able to kind of discern what Shakespeare said and then retracted.
Right.
And so we get the idea that Shakespeare was kind of a tricky character, and that he was kind of equivocating about some things, and he may have had some knowledge that he wasn't willing to share. But I think there's something Shakespearean about this ambiguity. His plays are full of it. There's all kinds of innuendo, fun innuendo, and that's what Ron Rosenbaum was getting at. That there's something kind of Shakespearean about that ambiguity that Shakespeare seemed to show on the stand. And I've written a play called The To and Fro, and The To and Fro is about Shakespeare's time living with the Mountjoys, who were French Huguenots. They had left France, and they had opened this wig shop in London, and Shakespeare was living with them, which would have made sense because they would have been part of the theater world. And Shakespeare was living above this wig shop, and I saw a farce when I read about this. But there's also some bittersweetness to it. From what we know about Shakespeare, we know that a writer's life can be a solitary life. He was living away from his family, and so there's some sadness to the play too. And what intrigued me is that at the time that Shakespeare was living with the Mountjoys, he was writing All's Well That Ends Well, which is what is considered a problem play. It's not easily categorized as comedy or tragedy. And so that's kind of where I got the title, The To and Fro.
Now, are you giving that this afternoon at the library?
This is happening this afternoon.
Yeah.
We're doing a public reading of the play. It's not a full production, but it's going to be the first time the play is heard aloud at 3 o'clock at Belk Library.
This sounds great.
And Triad Stage is bringing All's Well, It Ends Well this summer to App Summer. So.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So you just sat down and wrote a play.
Yeah.
Well,
you just did it. Just like that. Yeah.
It's always been kind of a hobby of mine. I've got a lot of background in the theater, and I went to school for here at Appalachian for communication. And when I haven't been in class, I've been writing plays. And Anna Ward, who is our director, is a friend of mine, and we were going to do another play that I had written that I spent about 7 years working on. And it's funny when you spend that long writing something, it's like 7 different people wrote it, And so this play just kind of poured out of me, and I wrote it in about 3 months. And it's about an hour and 20 minutes maybe. It's one act, no intermission, but it's a lot of fun and a lot of laughs.
Sounds great.
And then tonight starts Kill Will.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. That Derek Davidson
Yes.
has written, and there's some marvelous actors in that. I think the last show of that may be Sunday. I'm not sure.
I believe so.
Yeah, but we're going Friday. But there's some marvelous actors in that all week. Derek's wife Karen Sabo is in it, and Tori Allen. We're so lucky to have Tori. She is so talented. She works at the Jones House, and she's just all over the map. She's just marvelous. And Derek is in it. Who else is in that? Do you remember?
I'm not sure, but it's a great premise.
He's taking all these
just
great
fight
fight
scenes
scenes.
from Shakespeare.
Yeah. It's going to be pretty entertaining.
Give it a little
from what I
Tarantino
hear.
twist.
Yeah, we talked with them yesterday a little bit about
Good.
stage combat, and
Good.
it sounds pretty intense.
Yeah,
Yes.
it'll be fun.
Yeah,
And that's
absolutely.
at Valborg, I think. Yeah, this week. Yeah.
All right, so tons of things going
Yes.
on. Now, what are you both hoping that the High Country kind of takes away from this whole celebration experience, and what do you hope they learn about Shakespeare?
Well, I mean, I hope that For one thing, I think it's always great to have his plays read. There's a lot of controversy in the popular media about the authorship. Did he really write his plays?
Right.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to write this, because there is enough evidence. I mean, I wish we knew more about him, but there is plenty of evidence to show that this man of very modest upbringing wrote these plays, and that's a more interesting story to me. I mean, it shows that genius can spring up anywhere, and I was very interested to hear Betti talk about all the birds, and obviously Shakespeare had immense knowledge of the world. I mean, this man really was a genius. But we were also talking about visiting Stratford in the green room here. We were talking about visiting Stratford, and it's so cool to go there and see his gravesite and see the statue that's there in the church where he was baptized, and there's a little plaque underneath it that talks about the fact that he was a writer, and that's been there since he died. So that's pretty clear evidence that this man was the writer. But I just hope people read the plays, come back to them, and develop an appreciation for them, because really it doesn't matter who wrote them. What matters is just how brilliant his writing was and how powerful his writing was.
I think that what I would like to see out of this is appreciation for the talent that we have in this area. Because there's going to be, I don't know how many, Keith probably went over that with you already, but this party at the mall is going to feature a lot of, and I'm not sure that any of us were aware of so many different theater companies that we have here, and so much talent. It's just, I am in awe of the numbers of really talented, enthusiastic people, and I'm so excited too because of the rehabilitation, the downtown theater.
Absolutely.
We're going to be able to give some of these companies who've never had a venue, they've been performing in church basements and rehearsing in somebody's garage and performing on the high school stage. This is going, I didn't know they were there. Wow. So one of the things that I would like to see as a takeaway this day is how much talent we have here and how excited it all is.
Absolutely.
When I started writing the play, I talked to Anna about it, and Anna Ward, who's our director, and I said, Shakespeare's birthday's coming up. Let's do it for that. Let's do it to commemorate his birthday. And at the time, I had no idea all this other stuff was going on. And I looked in the Mountain Times, and there's a huge article about everything that's going on. I thought, I'm not alone in my adoration. So.
But I think the networking that I think has been created here. Just like when the Daniel Boone Garden said, well, why don't you just do it on this is the day we have, but this is perfect. We'll all do it together. This is great.
Absolutely. Good. Great Shakespeare community here.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. And we will be back right after these messages with more of the Mountain Television Network.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Bard.